In the 1980s, if you wanted a truly successful toy line, you needed three things. You needed a killer product, a comic book, and a cartoon. And the first pioneer to really perfect this art of marketing was G.I. Joe, a real American hero. Hasbro put out a killer 3 3/4 inch toy line. Marvel produced a comic book series full of grim but stern military adventure. And then Sunbow made a super goofy and campy Saturday morning cartoon.
What are you doing? Advance! Retreat! Retreat!
Pork chop sandwiches! Oh, shit!
Well, Hitler had a canary, Attila the Hun like goldfish. What can I tell you?
Come in! Stop that, Destro! I see you both clearly, and I am stunned!
Now, G.I. Joe may be a team effort, but there's still gotta be a main character. A lot of these toy line comic book cartoon me-doos have very obvious main characters. I mean, with He-Man, it's He-Man. With Brave Star, it's Brave Star. With Black Star, it's Black Star. With the TM Turtles, it's... well, you get the point. So who is the main character of G.I. Joe, a real American hero? Well, if you ask Marvel Comics fans, they'll probably tell you Snake Eyes. He is the Boba Fett of the toy line, he's the most attention-grabbing, he's the biggest badass, he gets all of the solo stories. Now, when it comes to the cartoon, most people will gravitate towards Duke as the main character. After all, he is the classic, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, bow-hunk, all-American loaf of white bread. There's also Flint, who's a lot more charismatic in my opinion, and he has the beret, so that's extra badass points right there. But sometimes, you get a side character who rises through the ranks and really steals the show. And in G.I. Joe's case, that's none other than Shipwreck. Shipwreck landed in 1985, which is often considered the best year for the G.I. Joe toy line. Not only did you get Shipwreck, but you got Lady J, Flint, Crimson Guards, Airtight, oh, and of course, Snake Eyes version 2, one of the most famous G.I. Joe toys ever made. Shipwreck is very much the Pulp Fiction pastiche of a Navy sailor. He's got his bell-bottoms on, he's got his Dixie Cup hat, he's got a parrot, and he's got a tattoo. Honestly, he'd look right at home in a 1950s, 1960s men's adventure magazine. Like Man Magazine, for example, or even Men's Magazine. To that effect, I don't know what Navy sailors were wearing in the 1980s, but I have a feeling that this look is dated even by that standard, which in a weird way makes it wrap all the way around back to timeless. For the era of toy engineering and design, Hasbro really prided itself on putting a lot of fun little details and accents on these action figures, and Shipwreck is no exception. Despite being a fairly straightforward design, Shipwreck has a lot of fun, unique details unto himself, like the brass belt buckle, the tattoo on his forearm, and of course, the beard, which I'm pretty sure goes against regulations, but it looks too cool not to have. When it comes to accessories, Shipwreck includes this percussion pistol, which looks extremely dated. It does give him that extra sailor edge, but it also makes it look like he bummed it off of John Paul Jones. And speaking of the pirate life, he also has these boarding hooks. They don't exactly look like hooks or anchors, but I guess he can swing them around and whip people with them, or maybe thwip around like Spider-Man. The last and most important accessory for Shipwreck is his parrot, Polly. There's a lot of G.I. Joes that have pets. Obviously, Spirit has Freedom, Mutt and Junkyard have each other, but Polly really is a full-fledged member of the G.I. Joe team, especially in the cartoon. Now, when it comes to posability, Shipwreck has a pretty solid articulation suite. He's an O-ring style action figure, which makes him pretty damn flexible for the time. It might be old hat now, but you gotta remember, while Micronauts perfected this in the early 70s, they were banished to the Shadow Realm by Star Wars, which was a 5 POA action figure. So this was really innovative for the time. Now, the original toy bio for Shipwreck describes him as a gruff, rough, and tough sailor man. Not really charismatic in the way we know him from the cartoon, but a salty sea dog who's seen his fair share of storms, and other sailorisms.
Arr! 90 sea shanties on 3 compact discs. Blow the man down, mateys, blow the man down. Row, row, row your boat in the Navy. Come on and join your fellow man.
The Marvel Comics also followed this characterization, making Shipwreck a much more prickly presence on the Joe team, pretty abrasive and rude to most of the other main cast. While the Marvel Comics kept Shipwreck pretty subdued and stern, the Sunbow animated series took his characterization and ran, making him one of the most charismatic, interesting, and fulfilled characters in the entire franchise, really. While he first appeared in the Revenge of Cobra miniseries, he really got the spotlight in the Pyramid of Darkness miniseries, which I like to call the Pyramid Wars. During this Bizzare Adventure, Shipwreck, Polly, Snake Eyes, and Timber go undercover in one of Cobra Commander's underwater bases, which is full of munitions, giant robots, and soldiers. Now, it sounds silly on its face value, but really it's a fun pairing because Snake Eyes is the stoic ninja badass, the straight man if you will, and Shipwreck put all of his skill tree points into charisma. So they get into a lot of trouble really fast, and it's pretty fun.
Ah, nice day, huh? Or a nice night. Who cares down here, right? Am I right? You see, nobody wants to know a subway philosopher. Now try to relax and act natural.
While we see that Shipwreck is a man who primarily relies on his charisma and his ability to talk his way out of situations, we also see that he is very much a straightforward classic hero. He is impetuous and a man of action. If he gets the chance to save the day and take down Cobra High Command, even if it means risking his life, he will do that. Now, after escaping the Cobra base, they make their way to this weird, Cobra-controlled dystopian city, and they meet a lounge singer named Satin. She's somewhere between Cyndi Lauper and Madonna. She has a vendetta against Cobra Commander because he killed her father, and while this was the most important day of Satin's life, for Cobra Commander, it was a Tuesday. Our intrepid motley crew sets out on a road trip across America, and this is where we get one of Shipwreck's other major qualities. Much like Kurt Wagner Nightcrawler, he's always macking on the ladies. At the climax of the Pyramid of Darkness, Shipwreck is actually the one who's able to destroy the huge pyramid infrastructure, and is able to help Satin in some way get revenge on Cobra Commander, sorta, kinda. Let's see, what else happens in Shipwreck's Bizzare Adventure? He fights Cobra, of course, he gets tangled up with Geraldo Rivera, he makes a movie. Oh yeah, that's right, he does meet a mermaid girl. During one of the battles with Cobra, Shipwreck meets Mara. She's a defecting Cobra agent who's actually been genetically altered to breathe underwater. The Joe team doesn't actually understand this when they first meet her, and she almost dies on dry land, and Shipwreck is the one who saves her by putting her back in the water. The two begin a very rapid Pulp Fiction romance, and of course Cobra is defeated at the end with the genetic research lab destroyed. Mara and Shipwreck go their separate ways, but it's interesting that Mara is the only romance that actually affects Shipwreck's characterization. This is actually seen in the two-part season finale, No Place Like Springfield, where Shipwreck is captured by Cobra and put in a simulated reality to interrogate and break him MK Ultra style. In the simulation, Shipwreck awakens in the hospital and is told that 6 years have passed since a final decisive battle between G.I. Joe and Cobra, a battle where Shipwreck led the charge but got Lady J killed in the process. Despite being hailed the hero, he and the rest of the Joe team retired, and Shipwreck went to civilian life and started a family with Mara, the Cobra Mermaid. Weirdly enough, this is kind of like the Star Trek The Next Generation episode Future Imperfect, where Commander Riker, another bearded swashbuckler, awakens in a simulated future with a family he can't remember.
Would anyone else like to speak up? Or shall we end this charade?
And kind of like Commander Riker, Shipwreck has a full breakdown trying to escape this simulated reality. Shipwreck finds out that his family is a lie, his friends die in front of him, his family attacks him, he's tortured by Cobra Commander, but he escapes the simulation. He's fine. He's probably not fine, but he's fine.
Not this time. You're wrong. Not this time.
Now, sailing nearly 40 years into the future, we have the G.I. Joe Classified Shipwreck, a 6-inch scaled figure meant to pair with Marvel Legends, Star Wars Black Series, SH Figuarts, and other more modern toys. The G.I. Joe Classified toy line had a bit of a rocky start, as they tried to reinvent and reimagine the Joes in a more modern context, kind of akin to Fortnite character designs. Now, I'm planning another video to discuss the changes in the G.I. Joe Classified design style, but suffice it to say, the earlier, more Fortnite-inspired toys didn't sell great, and we have pivoted more towards direct translations of the vintage 80s art and concepts with some flourishes of modernity. In the Classified Shipwreck, does an amazing job of translating that original concept and original art to a new and modern action figure. He still has the classic Dixie Cup hat and bell bottoms, but with 40 years of engineering improvements, a lot of that detail that's implied on the original is actually brought out and highlighted. The anchor tattoo returns, and over the past 40 years, he got a new shark tattoo on the other arm. We can also see that the white brace on the original that was meant to clip Polly on has been changed to a peg and port system. When it comes to accessories, Shipwreck includes a boarding anchor, much like the original. However, this one is revised to look a lot more like a proper ship's anchor, which is a lot more aesthetically interesting than the 80s original. He still includes an old school style gun, but instead of the percussion pistol from the US Navy, he's got much more of a double-barreled flintlock to be extra piratey. It's a very good design and it looks great with the figure holding it. He also includes much more modern weaponry with this pistol. While it's a lot less interesting than the flintlock in my opinion, it still looks great with these ropes molded and sculpted on there. I'm sure this means something, so let me know in the comments below. And Shipwreck still includes his BFF Polly. And Polly's been through some battles in the past 40 years as he now has a peg leg. The fact that Polly has a peg leg kind of feels like a joke from SpongeBob.
Don't you feel more like pirates?
Look, I'm Peggy the pirate.
I'm Blind Beard the pirate. Oop. Arrgh.
But it does serve a purpose with Polly now pegging onto Shipwreck's wrist as well as on his shoulder with this rope accessory. I believe the rope is a callback to the actual string that was used on the boarding hooks in the original, but it's a little unnecessary and kind of bulks up the figure in my opinion. It's a fun addition, but it's a neat to have, not a need to have. The engineering on display is pretty fantastic. We talked about how Zorana was more articulate than a lot of Marvel Legends, and especially Star Wars Black Series figures. However, Shipwreck takes that and excels. Double-jointed elbows, double-jointed knees, butterfly shoulders, drop-down hips, and more. This figure is pretty fantastically engineered. The only thing that it could really improve on would be alternate hands. Because of all this engineering work, the figure can be put in some very charismatic and action-packed poses. Look, I don't know much about sports, but what I can tell you for sure is that Classified Shipwreck is an absolute slam dunk of an action figure. Both the 80s original and the classified versions are some of the best action figures of their respective toy lines, and it's all wrapped up in the fact that Shipwreck is a very iconic Joe. He's up there with Duke, Snake Eyes, and Cobra Commander as being a pop culturally relevant character. A lot of this characterization is driven by the Sunbow cartoon, and the toys really reflect that, making Shipwreck not just a sailor and not just a swashbuckler, but the kind of guy who's going to save the day, the night, and the girl too.